Hello, today I will be doing an advanced bill training. This training is going to go over editing, voiding, the product return button, CMS forms, reports, and the functionality of clearinghouses inside of Crystal. So to get started on this training, I always like to pull up a previous invoice on one of our test patients. So today I'm going to come up over here to the top left where it says billing, and I am just going to use Mr. Michael Scott over here. So I'm going to double click. In order to get to a previous invoice, I'm just going to click on the drop down. I'm going to grab the day that I want, which on this one, I'm going to grab this one here, just like so. And actually, let's go with this one. There we go. So I'm going to grab this one from the 5th. So anytime after you click the save button, you guys can make changes to it. Down here, there is an edit invoice button. We're going to click that. While in edit mode, you can add to the invoice. So if your patient maybe changes their mind after you hit save, you can come down here. It's just like create mode. You can search by the bill code, the procedure code, or the description. And I am just going to grab these contacts here. I'll put an amount on those. When you're done in edit mode, make sure you always hit the update invoice button. If you leave without hitting update invoice, Crystal will not save your changes. So I'm going to say update invoice, just like so. Now on this example, we have a blue line here. The blue lines mean that you made a change, you made an edit. So for future, when you're going back through invoices, if you see any blue lines, that means that that line or lines have been edited. You may not know exactly what was changed, but you will know based on the color that there were lines that were edited on the invoice. So that's one thing we can do in edit mode. The other thing we can do is we can edit and we can make changes to single line items. I'm going to come up here again to my edit invoice button. And this time I'm going to go over here to the right where my individual billing codes are, and I'm just going to double click. I'm going to double click here. I can make changes to this. I could add a modifier if I needed to. I could tie diagnosis pointers. I could change insurance. I could take insurance off, change a copay, things like that. Basically, anything that you need to do, you can do it in edit mode. It's just one line at a time when you're in edit mode. So maybe we misread the copay, so I needed to go back and change it. Maybe it was actually a $20 copay. So I can come over here, click 20, and then click update. So now we're going to have another blue line. You can also void transactions as needed while you're in edit mode. For example, if I wanted to void the refraction, I can double click on it, and there is a void transaction button. Like that. And then again, anytime in edit mode, we need to come down here and click update invoice. We're getting this pop-up here because we made a change to an invoice that has insurance attached to it. Crystal just doesn't want us to forget that we may need to make changes to a CMS form since we made changes on the invoice. So we'll come back to the CMS form here in just a few minutes. But since we edited the invoice, you can see here, I adjusted the copay. And then if you look right here, you can see the void, which is this red line. Anytime you void a single line item, it'll be red in Crystal and it'll say void. You guys as the office will always see this. The patient does not. So if you were to print out a receipt for this patient, they are not going to see this line here that was voided. And then the other thing also that we can do in edit mode is we can change dates. So right up here where it says date of service, I could put this date wherever I needed to. So if I wanted to move it to the 9th, I can do that. You may also change the patient payment dates. If your patient truly did pay on a different day, great. If they paid today, great. Then you wouldn't have to change that payment. but I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to come over here, and I'm also going to change it to the 9th to make it match. And then I'm going to say update payment. And then again, we're going to come down here and we're going to say update invoice. And now when you look at this invoice, you will notice that your payment is on the 9th, and then the data service is also on the 9th. So that way everything matches. And there's one more thing that we can also do in edit mode with the diagnosis pointers. I'm going to go over that in just a few minutes when we take a look at the CMS form. Next button here is the void invoice button. So if you ever needed to just void an entire invoice for a patient, you definitely can. Typically, we don't recommend this as your go-to unless, maybe the patient just straight up got billed under the wrong patient. That would probably be a good reason to void. But typically, we recommend using the edit button and just going through and editing or voiding individual lines on your patient's invoices. But voiding is easy to do. You just click the button. Whenever you click it, you're going to get this pop-up here. And Crystal's just letting you know that as far as Crystal goes, it's like the invoice never happened. So it's going to take it off of all of the reports. There will not be a CMS form for it anymore. It'll basically be gone. And so we're going to say yes. And there you go. Just like I said, it's kind of like that never happened. We will be looking at the daily report here a little later in the training, and I will show you there is a way to get that voided invoice back through that report. So the other button to look at over here is the product return button. To do that, I always bill up some contacts. Technically speaking, you could use the product return button on really anything your office might need to return. Could be glasses, could be a miscellaneous item such as drops or masks. I always just show mine with contacts. So I'm going to come up here to the Create New Invoice button, and I am going to put in some contacts. We'll do 4. I'm going to come down here and click Save. And then I'm also going to change the data service so that way it looks a little bit more realistic, like what you might see in an office setting. So we're going to have our patient pay. This is something else that you can do. In your Make Payment screen up here at the top right, you'll see a date box. You are welcome to go ahead and change the date on the payment while you're in this screen. So I'm just going to put this back at the 28th of June. And we'll say it was credit. And then save. So we've got our payment on the 28th. However, we need our invoice to match that day too. So that's where I'm going to go back into edit mode. And right up here, I'm just going to also change that to the 28th. And then we're going to update the invoice. So we've got this invoice here, patient ordered contacts on the 28th. For whatever reason, today rolls around and we need to use our product return button. So I'm going to come over here to product return. When we click that button, you're going to have a transaction history over here. So when you're seeing the transaction history, you'll see the dates and, of course, the bill codes and the descriptions. I like to tell people, always pay attention to your dates on that. Invoice number is this column. That might help as well. And then, of course, the description. So we're going to come down here like so. Check the one that says 628, and then we're going to go return selected items. When we do this, Crystal just wants to know how many we need to return. You can return as little or as many as your situation may call for. Today, I am going to do all 4. So we're just going to do that, and we're going to come right over here, and we're going to click OK. So what happens then is on your original invoice where you bill up the patient, Crystal is going to edit this line for you right here and just let you know that while you did originally sell 4 boxes of the Air Optics Aqua, you used that return button and you did end up returning them. So Crystal's going to edit this line just a little bit. If you go to the day that you actually used the product return button, which is right up here, you're going to have this line here is kind of a magenta color. Crystal's just letting you know this is your actual return, and on this invoice is where you get that credit for the patient. So you've got the credit on the invoice and also overall, this particular patient would have a credit. Everybody handles credits differently. You could leave it. You could put it back on their credit card. You could write them a check. That leads me into the refund button if you wanted to refund it. So we're going to come down here to our Make Payment button. It's going to be red like this when you go to this screen. That's because the patient already has a credit. So Crystal's just drawing your attention to it. Hopefully you don't make another payment. If you are refunding your patient's credit card, you can use the credit right here. Just enter it as a negative like that. What happens on your reports is Crystal will take this as a negative credit card payment. So if your office runs the report from the credit card machine, or maybe you have the slips, you can actually go in and match this up inside of Crystal. So that's one way to do it. I'm going to hit clear. The other way to do it is if you're an office and you have to write refund checks from time to time for various things, could even be an insurance overpayment. You can come over here to Other, and there is a refund option right here. And then you can do the same thing, the negative 120. If you use this one here for refund checks, I recommend coming down here in the memo box. You can put a note of the check number that maybe you issued or mailed the patient. Later on, we're going to look at the production report, and I'll show you where you can find this memo on that report. So I'm just going to say check number, that. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to click Save Payment. And there you go. So your 2 negatives, of course, those canceled. You're going to issue or mail that patient a check. Down at the bottom, they're 0. And overall, they are also 0. So that brings me to the CMS form. And on that, I am just going to create a new invoice, and we're going to put insurance on it. Okay, so got our invoice, put our insurance on it. To create a CMS form, I'm going to come right down here and click the CMS form button. If you're using a clearinghouse, there is a different setting that you can use, so that way you don't have to do it manually, and we'll go over that in just a couple of minutes. But this is one way to make a CMS form. So I'm going to click this, and here's that form. Now, first thing to know on the form, you are welcome to type on the form. For example, if I was missing the ID number up here, I could free type it like that. But the downside is the information does not transfer from the form into Crystal. It only transfers from Crystal to the form. So in a situation such as this, I would fix it inside of Crystal and then regenerate it onto your form. But in different instances where you may need to free type, you certainly are welcome to do so. I'm going to scroll down here, let you look that over. Down at the bottom, we have some different buttons. There's a regenerate button. I also like to call it a refresh button. I'm going to come back to that in just a minute or two. We also have print buttons, so if your office needs to print the forms, you can. The print claim button without background means you have the official CMS form that's loaded into your printer. You're just going to print it out like this onto the official form. The print claim with background means you just have white paper loaded in your printer. You're going to print this off, probably in color, onto the white paper. Right here, you've got red, and it says not ready. This is a drop down. So this is what we call scrubbing the claim. And the process of scrubbing it is moving it from not ready to ready. So when we do that, Crystal's going to let us know if we're missing an NPI number, if we're missing a diagnosis code, a zip code, things like that. So I'm going to say ready. And of course, this is a test patient, so I'm missing all sorts of information. Of course, if this were a real claim, you most likely wouldn't be missing all this information. However, of course, you would want to fix this before you submit the claim. So where it says change status to ready, we're going to go ahead and say no. I am going to fix the diagnosis pointers, so that way I can show you how that works inside of Crystal. So we're going to say no, and we're just going to close out of the claim like that. Now, if you look at my invoice up at the top left, I don't even have diagnosis codes on it. So the first thing I would need to do, maybe talk to the doctor, maybe your office has a router or something that's got them, but I'd need to obtain the diagnosis codes. Once I get those, I can come down here back into edit mode. We have two buttons. You can use the import diag button, which would pull forward diagnosis codes from a previous invoice. My previous invoice also does not have diagnosis codes. Or you can use the edit diag button, which will allow you to search diagnosis codes. This top box up here allows you to scroll. So you can just scroll through this one, find a code that you need, use the double arrow button, move it right here. This down here allows you to search. So I'll do that. Find your code, and this time just use this at the bottom. Once you have your code or codes, just close out. We've got them. The next step here is to assign those diagnosis pointers. And to do that, since we're in edit mode, we have to go individually. So I'm going to double click on this one. We'll go A and B and update. A and B and update. A and B and update. And then again, we're going to come down here and update the entire invoice. Like so. So all my lines are blue because I made edits to every single line, but this diagnosis column right here, that looks exactly like you would want it to look. You'd want your pointers filled out so that way it will pull it over to a CMS form for you. So let's hop back to that form. And I'm going to come down here. Just want to point out a couple of things. If you look over here in box 21, you are not seeing the diagnosis codes. If you look over here in E, where it says diagnosis pointers, again, you are not seeing those pointers. So anytime you scrub a claim, which is moving it from not ready to ready, and you get a pop-up that says, hey, you need to fix the diagnosis codes, or you're missing a date of birth, something like that, you go, you obtain the information, you fix it. It's not going to show up on your CMS form again until you come down here to the bottom left and you click the regenerate button. This is basically a refresh button. So when you click it, Crystal's just basically telling you here, if you free typed anything, you're going to lose it. on your form. And we are just going to have to say yes. And there we go. So now, when you come right here, you've got your pointers, and you've also got, of course, your diagnosis codes up here. So if we're using a clearinghouse, we can come down to the bottom right where it says Add to Batch. It's going to disappear. That's okay. We're going to close out of our patient, and we're going to come up here to Admin. We're going to go over here to eClaims, which I also like to call a holding tank. And we've got all of our claims over here. Now, ideally, you would want to scrub all your claims, turn them green, then use this double arrow button right here, move them over. If you're using one of our direct integrations, such as TriZetto, Apex, or Waystar, once that gets set up, you may click the Upload TriZetto button, Apex button, or Waystar button, and that would go ahead and submit the claims to the clearinghouse for you. If you are not using one of our integrated clearinghouses and maybe you're using your own, you can use the Save Batch to File button, save it wherever it's convenient, go to your clearinghouse, and just upload that file from your clearinghouse website. I am going to use the double arrow button, move them back. You can also move your claims over one at a time, or you can use Control-Shift with this single arrow, like that. If I wanted to use Control-Shift, I can. I can go like that, hold those two, Control-Shift, and then again, the single arrow button, like that. So different ways to move them from the left to the right, and then either save them or upload them. I'm going to hit the updated date here. So here's the one from today. If I double click on it from here, it's going to pop up the CMS form. And I can do the exact same thing. I can scrub it, I can free type on it, I can do all that good stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it as ready, and I'm just going to say yes and turn it green, even though it's not. We're just going to pretend. So I can scrub it from here. The reason I point that out is because if you come down here to the Insurance tab, there is an option down here at the bottom left, and it says Automatically Add to Batch. If you choose to, you can turn this on per insurance, so like right here, and per plan if that's how your office sets it up. You can check this box, basically saving you that step of going to the patient's invoice, creating it, scrubbing it, and adding it. You can just have them automatically come here, and then once you get here, maybe at the end of the day or middle of the day, you can double click and you can scrub it and do everything you need to do from over here, just like so. So I like that setting. I think that's a good one. Definitely recommend it for claims that you're going to send to your clearinghouse. Other things to know over here, let me grab maybe this one. Abbreviations are really, really important to the reports. Some of the reports will only show abbreviations. If you're watching this and you're an office who is not live with Crystal, maybe you're going through a data transfer phase, do not change the abbreviations until you're officially live with Crystal and you've done that final data transfer. Anytime after that, if needed, you are welcome to edit your abbreviations. Also, on the CMS form, if you're using one of our integrated clearinghouses, such as TriZetto, Apex, or Waystar, you must have a payer ID number over here in box 10D, and that is specific for electronic filing. But again, you won't want to set that up until you're completely 100% live with Crystal Practice Management. So I'm going to come back up here to eClaims. I showed you over here, if you double click, that's going to bring up your CMS form. It's missing all sorts of stuff. However, if you move it off of the radio button that says CMS form to invoice, and then you double click on it, it will actually take you back to the invoice. So if you use that setting where the claims will automatically go to the batch for you or your little holding tank, and let's just say you're missing diagnosis codes or you're missing a date of birth or something, you can very quickly get back to the patient's invoice, change whatever you need to change, maybe go back to their patient page, update date of birth, all that good stuff, ID number, and then you just need to go back into admin eClaims and double click on it, and then just regenerate the claim from here. So that's everything that I have here on the eClaims. There is some setup for the various clearinghouses. I'm going to come up here to Company. I'm going to go to the tab that says Billing. And right here under EDI, if you're using, again, any of these three, TriZetto, Apex, or Waystar, you'll need the username and password from them, and you can see that here. Let me uncheck this, like that. And then with TriZetto and Waystar, they will provide you with an FTP password, and you'll have to plug that in here. And then on your CMS form, you have to have this box checked, like so. The office ID is the same thing as your username, so you'll actually plug that in twice. And then at Crystal, we have a number we can plug in here. If it's for Apex or Waystar, you'll have to get with them and see what number you need to be using here for your receiver ID. All right. Next, let's go look at reports. I'm going to close out of here. I'm going to come up to this button where it says Reports. Since we're talking about claims, I like to go over the claims report first. That is going to be under Financials, Claims Report. On these reports here, you can put in whatever dates you prefer. You can manually do it by using the calendars. You can free type it. You can pick a date and you can do a length of time, or you can choose a quick option over here. So either way you want to do it. I'm actually going to start on the left and work my way right on these claims reports. This first one right here that says CMS 1500, that is exactly what this report is for. It does not care about anything else other than the CMS form. So you can definitely use this to help keep track of those. Even if your office prints the forms, that shows up here too. So we're going to click Generate, and you can see that right here. Under Print Type, like I said, it will tell you exactly what you did to that form. If you upload them, it'll say either written or wrote to batch here, and then you're going to have a batch ID. If you print them, of course, it'll say print. The other thing that I like about this report is you can use Control-Shift. Let's just grab these. I could regenerate a whole bunch of claims if needed, and then I could even add them back to the batch from here, so then you wouldn't have to go to each individual patient. So that's report number 1, just your claims, CMS report. Next one here is Invoice Status. So this report cares about, was the patient billed up with insurance? If your office has patients, they don't have insurance, they do not show up on the invoice status report. But we can click that, generate, and then right here, we can drag this out a bit. So where you see this insurance column, that's where it's pulling from the abbreviations. So it's good to have good abbreviations on those. This one is going to give you claim status information. Like we've got created ready. This one would be green. This one would be red. And these ones here that say no claim form, that just means we did not generate a CMS form. And then this one here tells us that we added it to the batch. Now, this note column right here that you're seeing, this pulls from the note box up at the top right. So if you are going outside of Crystal, maybe you're going to iMed or you're going to iFinity to file claims, you can put a note in the top right-hand corner of your invoice, and it's going to generate on this report. And you can see here, we don't have a claim form, so I could have left a note on these to let myself know that I did file these. It was just done outside of Crystal. And then this last one here is by doctor. So again, we're just going to generate that report. This breaks down the number of claims for each doctor. Unfortunately, on mine, Luke Skywalker sees all the patients. But of course, we could see that all here. And then from here, you can double click and it would just break it down from here. So you are welcome to use that. Other report here is the invoice report. So when we were talking about these reports, pretty much we're dealing with insurance. If you're looking for a report and you just want to see who was billed, if they have insurance or not, you can come over here back to financials and grab just this invoice report right here. Again, put in whatever days you prefer and click generate. Just like so. So every patient, doesn't matter insurance or not, they're going to show up. And again, this insurance column right here, we're looking at abbreviations based on admin insurance. All right, I'm going to switch gears. We're going to look at our daily production report and just the daily report right here. I like to point out both of these reports, the production and just the daily report, those come in a multi-day option right here. So here's multi-day production, here's multi-day report. Of course, the multi-days, those allow you to run it for a time span, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever you'd like to generate the report for. Your daily ones, of course, that's just one single day. You can run both of these at the end of the day, play with them for a little bit, pick your favorite, and run that one. But we're going to look at both of these today. So I'm going to say daily report. Again, just one day. I can change it, but it's just one day at a time, and then we're going to click generate. So first thing to know on this report is anything underlined in blue, you may open that up and take a look at it. So if it's the end of the day, you're counting back through checks, you've got your credit card report, you're counting back through cash, feel free to use this one. You can open up payments here. So we've got a $40 cash payment, and it's showing me here, this patient paid 30 and this patient paid 10. There are print buttons up at the top, so feel free to print out each screen if you'd like. We've also got check payments. We can open that up. We can see that, each amount here, and then back. And then, of course, credit card payments. So on this one here, first thing you're going to see is it's going to break it down by type, give you totals. But from here, if you needed to, you can deep dive. There's the patient who paid with Visa. Back to details is going to take you back to the previous screen. And if you're done looking here, the back to summary is going to take you back to this screen right here. So feel free, open up any of these. You've got discounts, miscellaneous adjustments, services and products. So you can open up anything over here. There are different views also on this report. There is a day sheet view, which on this one is just going to show the patients and their charges and their payments. So you can look at that, print it if you'd like. We have a transaction breakdown, and that is going to show the patients and their transactions. And then to get back, we're just going to say hide. Next, we have the voided invoice. So we can click the number on this, which is just 1. It's going to show us that patient whose invoice we voided. We can double click from here. When we get back, it takes us to the voided invoice. As you can tell, it's pink. It even says voided up here in our top right-hand note box. But there is an unvoid invoice button. So if it did get deleted by mistake, you can run this report and unvoid it. Now, once I close this and we go back to the report, it's still voided. You'd actually need to come in here and, of course, click that button to unvoid it. So I'm just going to hover over my crystal icon. The report's still here. For quotes, you can see those two. We typically show that switch to quote button in the optical training, but I can click it, show me who all has quotes, and of course I can double click, go to their quotes. Open routing slips. I think this is the most important thing on this particular report, and that is because in Crystal, the routing slips are how we bill. So if you have any number greater than 0 at the end of the day, were those patients billed? If not, why do they have open routing slips? So we can click that. And of course, you can see all of mine here that are open. It's going to tell you the date, the patient, the bill code, the diagnosis code, and the doctor. From here, you can double click on it, and it'll bring up your routing slip. Of course, you're welcome to go up to the patient, go through there, do some investigating, figure out, was the patient billed? If they were billed, you can delete down at the bottom right. You can delete these routing slips one at a time if needed. Or if you're in a situation and you do have a handful of them, you're welcome to print it, go investigate all your patients. And if you're 100% sure that every patient has been billed, instead of deleting one at a time, there is a close all R slips button right here. And you can just delete all of them at one time. And I'm just going to go back to summary. The open medrecs, the doctors are welcome to use this here if they choose. I'm also going to show the medical record report today. It has to do with the checkbox up at the top left in the medical records. If it's unchecked, it's pink. Record is not complete. If it's checked, it turns it green, and that means that the record is completed. So you can see that here. A lot of mine are really old, but I'm mainly looking at this complete column up at the top right with all the no's. And then lastly, on this report is new patients. I have not entered any new patients into Crystal today. If I did, I would have a number. And of course, you can click on that and open it up to see the new patients added. All right, we're going to come back. This time we're going to look at production, which again is under financials. Right here, got our date, and we're going to hit generate. So just like the daily report, you can open up anything underlined in blue. So the top part here, Crystal is breaking your fees down by production, also means the category that your billing code is in. So as long as your billing codes are in the right category, your numbers are going to be good over here. So under contact lenses, I have $760. I can click on that, and then it's going to show me all of those contacts here, like that. And of course, there are print buttons on these ones as well, and I can go back. So I can just come through here, open these up. Right here, you've got discounts, write-offs, miscellaneous, all that stuff. Again, you can open it. There's a discount. If you pick a drop down or if you free type, it'll show that over here. Here's that refund when we used the refund button and we went to other. And if you type that check number into that memo, it's going to show up on this report. So you can see that here. And then here's the actual return. And then down at the bottom, you also have payments just like you do on the daily report. You've got check, cash, insurance checks, EFTs, and then you've still got your credit card payments. And of course, all of these can be opened. So you can see the patients here. So these are the two that I recommend running those, hopefully at the end of each day, if you can. So I'm going to come back into financials. Next is the sales report. So on this one here, all you need to do is say select all. Again, whatever dates, and click generate. This one is similar to the production report, except it's not going to have payments on it. It's basically the top part of the production report. It's breaking down all of your categories here, which has to do with the category of your billing code. And from here, you can double click and you can open all of that up. On this one, if you keep double clicking, eventually you're going to get back to the patient who purchased, in this case, contact lenses. Now, the report is still here. All I need to do is hover over my crystal, and there it is. So I'm going to close out. The other report that some offices can run is the sales payment report. For this one, you need to line item post both your patient payments and your insurance payments. But you can come over here, put in your dates, and click generate. And this column here that says assigned money will break down how much money you've collected specifically for those CPT codes. And I don't do a lot of item posting online, but you can see here I've got some insurance payments. And so what Crystal is showing me, here's how much went to each one of these line items, just like that. So this one will also include payments. Very, very similar to the sales report, except it just has the assigned money over here. All right, let's switch gears here. We're going to look at insurance receivable. So there are no dates on this one. Just click generate. So this one here is going to show you every patient who has an insurance balance. Right now, up at the top left, you'll see it's on all insurances. And I've got a pretty big balance there with insurances. But we can come through here. We can grab that. You can see that's the only patient that I have. Let's grab this one here. So here's all of our Blue Cross Blue Shield balances. You can come over here to the middle where it says all. You can uncheck it, and you can do 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, etc. I think all of mine are going to fall into this 120 category, just like so. So you can use this, first of all, as an aging report, keep track of that, and make sure, of course, you're getting payments from the insurance companies. You can also use it for what we call the mass insurance check. So if we got paid from Blue Cross and Blue Shield and we have an EOB or an EOP, instead of doing this one at a time, we can come up here to the top where it says mass insurance check. So typically the first thing I like to do when I'm on the screen is maximize it. And then the second thing that I like to do is come down here to the bottom right and enter in the payment information. So we'll go EFT. We're going to put in our EFT number. So you're welcome to put a memo on that. Over here in the date, some offices post the day of. Some like to go back through and change the date. There is a date option here if you needed to change it. Once you get the information entered down at the bottom, you are ready to start posting. Everybody posts a couple different ways. Most people do line item post. If you're an office who prefers to line item post, you can come over here to the top left and you can see all these tiny little plus signs. Those plus signs will show you the CPT codes that were billed right here. And then, of course, feel free to move these columns out if you needed to see and read them a little bit better, like that. So on this one, we have our EOB. We billed them $64.08. They probably did not pay us $64.08, so I could type in $29.56. You can click, you can hit enter, you can hit tab, whatever your preference is. I'm just going to hit tab. When you do that, Crystal will take the remaining and it'll put it over here in the write-off column, which is great. If that's what your EOB says, of course, go to your next patient. But you can also move this money around. So if I come over here to patient responsibility, let's just say it was $20. I can come over here and do that. Click enter tab. I'm just going to click this time, and it'll take that money just like that. So Crystal will help you out by moving the money whenever you change those amounts. If you just like to do one lump sum and you do not want to line item post, that's fine. I'm going to uncheck these boxes to get rid of it. In that case, you do not need to click the plus signs. Just leave it and just come right here. Well, we billed $64.08. How much did they pay us? $29.64. Write it off, maybe go to your next one. Well, we billed them $110. They paid us $48, and so on and so forth. So then you can just go right down and post your payments like that. I'm going to click on this one. So we billed them $86.76. Do that. On this one, there's a refraction. So we're just going to say insurance made us write that off. So I'm going to say $53.64. I'm not even going to put anything here, just like so. So in an ideal situation, when you have your pages and pages and pages of an EOB payment, you would just come through here and post for each patient that you can on that EOB. While you are posting, Crystal is going to keep track of the columns for you. So you've got your total, and you've got your write-off. If you need to leave money on the insurance, there's a column for that. If you transfer some of it to the patient, which I'll do here, just do that. It's going to keep track of that. Or if you need to transfer it to another insurance, you can do that over here. If I drag this out, you'll see insurance 2, 3, 4, etc. So sometimes looking at insurance 2 and 3 and 4 and so on and so forth can be a little confusing. In Crystal, on the patient page in insurance, you can rename those tabs. And every single office renames them differently. But Crystal goes insurance 1, insurance 2, insurance 3, so on and so forth. So when you're looking at this report, just because it's in the insurance 2 spot does not necessarily mean this is the patient's secondary insurance. It just means in your Crystal, that's where your office has put it. So it's really important to know that because their secondary might be in the 4th or 5th spot, depending on how you do that setup over there. Actually, there's a couple other things to note. Under this invoice column right here, you've got these numbers, which these are the invoice numbers. On this report, though, they are also buttons. So if I double click on it, it would take me to that patient's invoice. So if you're posting and there's an issue or something, numbers aren't adding up, you can double click, come take a look at it, and then you can come back because your report is still here if you hover over Crystal, and you can just keep right on posting without having to close out of this. Now, sometimes offices might like to leave a note about patient responsibilities, which I have one here. So I'm going to double click. There's a couple of ways you can do that. If you want the patient to see it, if you want them to know why they're having to pay a balance, you can come down here to the bottom right and you can say, add a comment. And whatever you'd like to say, patient balance equals deductible. Okay. So then when you print that out or you send a statement, that's going to show up for the patient to see. If you want to leave a note just for your office, just for internal notes, we've got the Edit Notes button up here. You can click that. And of course, you're welcome to do the same thing. Just one, the patient will see it, and one will just be internal use only. But both of those options are available. So again, I'm going to hover over my Crystal. I'm going to go back to the mass insurance check. And once you finish posting your payment, you want to come down here and click your Save Payments button, just like this. So click that. Crystal will pop this up for you once. You see this, and in this case, it's just 3, and you say OK, then you're done. Payment has been posted. We're going to go take a look at the payment in just a second. One more quick thing I want to show you here is the More Columns checkbox right here, which of course does exactly that. It'll give you more columns. So we get a column for chargebacks right here if your office records those for glasses. And then we also have an input button here that can be used for chargebacks. We offer separate, like a separate VSP payment posting training. We can show you how to use those. So if you need one of those, feel free to reach out and we can get you scheduled. But the other thing that I like here too is the patient billed and the patient left. So like this patient was billed $243 and they paid it because they don't have anything left. But if we come down here, this patient was billed $35 and they still have a $35 balance. They did not pay that. So even if you're not recording chargebacks, you can still use the more columns to at least get the patient billed and the patient left. So I'm going to uncheck that. To get back to an invoice, I'm simply going to click on this invoice number here and let it take me, just like that. And this is what the invoices look like once you post payments. So here's the payment, and then you've got the transfer, and then you've got the write-off. And since we transferred that money to the patient, well, now they have a $10 balance on this invoice. And again, this would print, this note would not. So I like the mass insurance check. I think that's the fastest, most efficient way to post payments. However, you can also do it per individual patient if needed. So let's take a look at that. And I'm going to go ahead and close out of the report. If I hover over my crystal, they're just down here at the bottom. So I'm going to pull back up Michael Scott. I know he has an insurance balance. There we go. So we'll pretend we got paid by the insurance. So when we're on an individual patient, we're going to go make payment / adjustment. This time we're going to go to the insurance tab. We're going to say EFT. We're going to put in our EFT number. And we billed insurance $250. So let's just say they paid us $105.63. It was this one here. And then we're going to come down here and we're going to say save payment. So when we do that, we're going to get this pop up here. Very similar to our mass insurance check. We still have to tell it what we need it to do with the rest of it, which in this case is the $144.37. So we're going to say take action. Are we going to write it off? Are we going to give it to the patient, or are we going to give it to another insurance company? So we can come over to write off. We can say we're going to write off $120.37, and then we're going to give the rest to the patient, which is this 24. So I can free type in the 24, or this is the invoice balance. I could just click invoice. Either way. And then we're going to hit save. So we did the same thing, just did it on a different screen. If your office likes to line item post, if you go into edit mode, you can double click on the payment and you can come down here and say customize payment details and assign the money wherever your EOB tells you. Like so. And in this case, we would want the unknown to be 0. Update and update, and then same here with your write-off. Like that. And then our unknown is 0. And then we're going to say update check details, and then we're going to update the payment. And then, of course, again, we're going to update the invoice. So 2 ways there to post payments. Next report I like to show, especially after posting insurance payments, is the patient receivable report. Could be patients have balances now. So I'm going to come over here to financials, patients receivable, and I'm going to click generate. So on this report here, if you run it and you get this pop up here, Crystal is just telling you these patients have balances with your office. However, they are not going to show up on this report. The reason for that is on the additional info tab where it says send statements, that has been turned to no. Could be they're inactive, they could be in collections, or maybe they are a friend or family member of the doctor, and maybe the doctor doesn't want to send them a statement. So that's what this is here. You're welcome to print it if you want to. Go investigate, make sure that all of this is correct and that these patients should not be receiving statements. So I'm going to hit close. Once you do that, of course, it's going to bring you to your report here. On this report down at the bottom, you can select your past due amount for your aging report, similar to how we did it on insurance receivable. So I'm going to uncheck all. We can go 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. Oh, how do I in there? And 120 plus, which is probably where all of mine are going to be. So feel free, keep an eye on it, send them out accordingly, however your office likes to do that. You can also sort the report if you want to. I'm going to come back here to all. You can go past due, date, name, or amount. I like to show amount, so I just sorted it by greatest to least. So let me click it again. There we go. Your office might have patients who just owe you a little bit of money. So instead of sending them a statement, you can sort it and then on your keyboard hit delete. And that will take the patient or patients off of the report. And then, of course, you can send out statements. Now, the patient is still in Crystal and they still have a balance. You're just not going to print out a statement for that patient. Some offices like to simply print the report first. Again, investigate, going through, make sure it all looks good. So there is a print button right up here just to print the report. I'm going to come over to the left on mine. I have to select a location. There we go. Once I do that, then there is a print past due button. Now on the print past due, there is no print preview. So once you click this button, it is going to start printing all of your statements. So beware on that one. The print button, it does have a print preview on it. So that way you can take a look at it before you start printing out statements. And then if you're working with TriZetto or Bill Flash, there are upload buttons here. And if you want to have them take care of your statements, you're of course welcome to do that through them if you'd like. Okay. Last couple reports over here in financials. We have a billing code report, which I always like to say is really straightforward. It is just a report of billing codes. So you can come over here, generate that. It's going to break all your billing codes down. And again, if you wanted to see the patients, just double click on it. It'll give you the quantity and then it'll break down the patients. The other report that you can also use is the check number report. Again, it's a pretty straightforward report, but comes in pretty handy, whether it's for patient check payments, or insurance check payments. You can click generate from here, and it'll tell you all the check payments. Up at the top left, you can specify if you want to see just patient or just insurance. Here's the Blue Cross one. I can double click here, and it'll show me every single patient that was posted under this check number specifically. Definitely always want to enter check numbers for patients and or insurances, specifically for this report. And then other reports that we have under schedule, we have a schedule report. And again, it's whatever dates, and then click generate. So on this one here, you can also double click and open them up. Let's just go to all appointments. So you can see all of them here, type and status and whatnot. I like it, especially for missed and canceled. So really, really important over on the schedule for your appointment windows. If your patients miss or cancel appointments, definitely want to make sure that they are being marked accordingly, especially for this report here. So if I go to canceled, you can see that he canceled. I also like the next column, or the next appointment column. My apologies. This patient doesn't have one, but I can go back over missed. So Denise, she hasn't scheduled, but Michael did. So you can see here that he's already been rescheduled for that. So, of course, feel free to use the schedule report. Under demographics, if your office is using Crystal for recalls, you may run the recall report. So the first step to that, you got to set it up over in the admin. When you're ready to run the recall report, put in your appropriate dates over here and then click generate. Once you do that, Crystal is going to break down however you set up the recalls. So if you made postcards or letters or address labels or whatever it is that you did over there, it'll bring it up here. And then from here, you can print it out or send emails or whatever you need to do off of this screen. All right. Oh, we'll go right here to medical records report. So this is the one that I was referring to when I was talking about that daily report, the open medical records. This is the same thing. A lot of doctors just like to run this at the end of the day. So I'll just click today, although I don't have any. Let me go back a bit and then generate. And again, it's just going to tell you if that record was completed. Checkbox is at the top left-hand corner of the records. And then last report to go over today is under here where it says logs, the user log report. So Crystal will track quite a bit of what everybody does inside of Crystal. If you ever have to run this report, I highly recommend that you uncheck some of this criteria and narrow that down. You can use dates, you can use a user, you can even use a patient over here. So for today on the training, I'm going to uncheck all dates, and I'm just going to run this for today and generate. Let me scroll. Here we go. So I'm going to stop here. And I'm stopping here because you can see all three of the colors. So we've got green, blue, and red. There are also levels assigned to those. So your green is a level 1, blue is a yellow level 2, and then red is a level 3. Other than that, you can see, of course, the user, the category, the date and the time. So if you're looking for something, you want to see who's doing what, this is probably going to be your report. You can see all that. We also have a user log over on the patient. So let me close out of this, and I'm going to come up here to patient, and we'll just use Michael. That's fine. This time we're going to go to Files, and it's right here, Show Patient Log. So this is the same thing as the user log report, except it's just for this one single patient. So we're going to click that. And of course, there you go. Whole bunch of blue and green. And there's some reds in here. I like to tell people the colors and the levels, that might not affect what you're looking for. But if it does, that's great. Chances are, if you're running the report or if you're looking over here, probably looking for something. So then the most important information is probably going to be the user, the description, and maybe the date and the time on all of that. But that concludes today's advanced billing. If you have any questions, feel free. Reach out to your assigned trainer. If you're not in training right now, feel free to reach out to tech support. You can reach out to them by email, support@crystalpm.com, or by phone, 1-800-308-7169, and the extension for that is 1. Thank you, and have a great day.